Hey there everyone, this is Trisha with Easy E-mini Trade, and I wanted to show you the Renko setups today so you guys who attended the webinar last week can get more familiar with it. And it's been working out really well, and I'll try to do a few more of them so this becomes second nature. If you have any questions, feel free, shoot me an email. If you were unable to attend last week's webinar, it is available. Just visit my site, easyeeminitrade.com, and click on the link, the tab at the top of the page that says webinar recording. Okay, so let's get going here. Okay, so what you're looking at is the NQ, and this is on the Renko chart that I described during the webinar. On the NQ, the settings are a little bit different than the other instruments. So this is using a Renko for Ninja, and if you're using Sierra, I gave the settings for the Flex Renko. So if you're looking at Sierra, it's going to be a little bit different than Ninja. So just be aware that these entries that I'm giving you on this chart are going to be a little bit different than Sierra, and I'll try to do that one as well. So I've got an indicator that Gordon has been working on for us, basically to color the background here. And all I'm looking at is the histogram on this indicator. I don't really care about the lines unless, I can spot divergence off of them. So I gave you the settings for the three moving averages that are above our head and coloring with the slope. And all those were available for download with the webinar recording. So, if you're interested, like I said, go to the website. All right, so I'm just looking at the histogram here. I want it above zero when I'm closing above this small super trend stop here. And when you're taking an entry against the higher period moving averages, mainly the two up here, this one is kind of small. I think this is a 20. This is less relevant. So what I would be looking for is I would be looking to see if I had room up to the higher period moving averages, or if you're looking at a different style or size chart, just look at your resistance areas and decide if there's enough room or not. We got a break here of the small super trend. It wasn't valid if you're using the filter. Now the thing about using the filter is you can forego using that and take every single one that sets up, or just take the ones that set up in the direction of the overall trend. It's up to you how aggressive you want to be. So this buy here obviously worked out what you had been looking for. And I have a second super trend stop on here with a bigger settings that if you wanted to use, you could. It's not anything that's required or anything to do with the setup. It's just another way to get in if you're looking for one. So anyway, this buy was valid. So this would get you in at, let's say, 2 ticks above that high. Let's just say 57.75, and obviously, it went all the way up to 80. In real live trading, I would say that it would be really hard, at least for me, it would be really hard, if I'm going to be honest, to sit here for, almost, 25, 30 points. So, realistically, I would trail off a smaller chart, and I probably would have gotten stopped out down here if I was in this. We had news coming out at 10, so I wasn't in this trade leading into 10 o'clock. So just depends on what your trading plan allows around news. Here we get closed below the super trend stop right here. Histogram still above zero, so it's a pass. Now, if let's say it was valid and you have these moving averages all here below you, this would be giving you a heads up that, okay, if I take this Renko short, I have a good chance of getting hung up on these two larger higher period moving averages. Now, if you see that the day is just back and forth with huge swings and these are less relevant, then don't use them. Okay, here we get above the super trend stop, not valid for a buy because we're still below zero on the histogram. Here, the short sets up, it is valid, and this one would be going into our two higher period moving averages. So that would just give you a heads up. It's the same thing as if you were looking over here at these swing lows. It would give you a heads up, okay, price might hang up there. If you're looking at a market profile and you saw that this was a high volume area, again, just giving you a heads up. And obviously it has no trouble whatsoever. Got through that with no issue whatsoever. Here we get closed above, it's not valid because our histogram's still below 0. Here we get closed below, it's valid because our histogram's below 0. So this would get you in at, I've been using, like I said, 2 ticks below, so this would have gotten you in at like 61.75, and it traded down to 54.25. This buy was valid. Now remember what I was saying about the slope of those moving averages. Now if it's pretty sideways and there's no real slope on them, they're just pretty flat, then they're less relevant. This, you can see that you would be buying into these higher period moving averages that are sloping down. So you can use, like let's say that you were getting this buy here and you have this small little one here above your head. You may just look for an entry off a smaller chart. Chances are probably that at this time this was bouncing off support, so you probably had a way to get in. In fact, I'm looking at my my sheet here, and I had a divergence trade at that time off support. So, you know, other ways. This is just one setup, and it does eliminate the noise. So you decide if you like it or not. This buy here, valid. Same situation as back here. You're buying it against that strong slope of those moving averages. So chances are that you could get hung up there. If you were above them, wouldn't be an issue. Here, the short, not valid, even though it works. Histogram's above 0. I want it to be valid as price is breaking that super trend stop. Some people have a rule of they're willing to get in a bar late. So again, it's going to be up to you. Here, buy is valid because we're above 0. And same situation as back here and here. You would be looking at that moving average above your head, and you'd have to decide if you were willing to take the risk or not. Gets through the small one, gets hung up on the bigger one up here. Short, not valid because our histogram above 0. Now, I don't do anything with these. Gordon is working on the indicator to color those reversal bars, and we can go more into that later down the road. Now, so let's say that you were trading this afternoon and the short wasn't valid, and then market takes off, and you do have a second super trend stop on there. You could take an entry under that bar there. Chances are you probably wouldn't have been too aggressive if this were all you saw right here, breaking that larger super trend stop. It's at the low of the day. You probably would not be too keen to take an entry off this chart because obviously at the time you don't know that it's just going to bust through and keep on going. But the good news is that, so maybe you don't get a setup here that you're willing to take, but you could drill down onto your smaller entry chart and then find a way in. This is only one way to get in, you guys. It's not the only way, okay? Here, this buy, valid. Now you just had that monster move. You know that you're probably going to get a retracement, but are you feeling aggressive enough to go against that large move that just happened? If you tried, you might have gotten a little something out of it, but it did not work out for, you know, a huge runner. Same here, short, not valid, does manage to work out if you decided to take it with the overall trend. But remember, you don't have to feel like you're missing something. You just take an entry off your smaller chart. Chances are there was a slinky setting up off the range chart. So lots of options. Buy valid here, same situation going against the last move. You might get stuck on this small moving average because you're underneath it, and then if you get through, then you're looking up at the next one up here, or the big super trend stop. Short, not valid here either. This buy, a little bit better because we're above that small moving average. You can see if you look at it on another chart, when you see all these tails back and forth using a Renko, it's consolidating when you look at it on a different style chart. But this buy was valid, and you would look at this area here on this moving average as your possible hiccup area. Now, if you look over here, you can see you have a swing high right around 10. So that would likely be the spot that you would be looking at for a possible pullback off of. If you took this long, that would give you a heads up. That might be the area you get stuck. Short not valid here by a couple bars. And you know, today you're getting big swings, so they're working out in spite of the filter. And then again, some consolidation down here. Buy's not valid here, so nothing to really do here. Short not valid here. This buy here is valid. Moving averages are below you, so hey, fits the criteria. And then what would go through my mind is I would just at least be aware that we have these swings here and here, where price might have a little bit of difficulty. And then once it's through, then you're looking up to your next area of resistance as your target. Short not valid here, this buy valid. Now this is into the highest period moving average that we have on the chart. So this would just basically be a warning that you might have some difficulty there. The good news is that you could see the slope is basically trying to change its bias here. Went from red, white is pretty flat, and then it would go back to green. So if you wanted to try it, knowing that that's above your head, you'd be looking at you know, different time period chart to see where resistance is, like a 15-minute or something. Let's see, is this short valid here? The short here valid? Because we're under zero with our histogram. Now we're going against the moving averages, trying to take a short, and they're below us. So just like on the way up, you're going to be aware of what's underneath you there. Same thing with this short. This buy is not valid. Right here is not valid. And then the short, same situation. You got both moving averages down there. The more stuff that's piled up in your way between you and your target, you're going to have to at least acknowledge, at least be aware. Okay, and that is basically it. I'll show you real quick on Sierra, Renko. And we're using a little bit different settings because they don't have a uni Renko. They have Flex Renko. They have a bunch of different options, but this is as close as I could get it to mirroring the Ninja chart. And you don't have to have it to mirror. I am trying to get it close because I've got people in my room using both Sierra and Ninja. So your setups would be slightly a little bit different when they actually triggered and set off and filled. But let's see, I'll start here. Let's see. So here's the open. The short wouldn't have been valid here, but if you wanted to take it breaking the big super trend stop, you could have taken it here. And I'm not saying one is any better than the other. Obviously, with the smaller settings, it'll get you in sooner, but sometimes the indicator doesn't match down here in time for that. So here, even though you didn't have a valid buy down here when it's breaking that small super trend stop where we have those white lines, here when it was breaking the bigger one, it was. And you've got room up to those moving averages. So, you know, that could be your target area in the event that price hangs up there. Short not valid here. This buy here is valid. Now, in my opinion, you need to use a little common sense no matter how you trade. If the market just moved, you know, 20, 30 points. Okay, so let's see, how big was this move? Let's say from, oops, wrong one. Let's see here. So let's just see what that swing low is there. So let's say 51.25, and price just moved up to 80. Okay, so not quite 30 points. And I'm not talking ticks, I'm talking points. So common sense would tell you that if the market just moved 30 points, you probably need a bigger pullback than a couple points. So I wouldn't be too quick to take the buy right here, even though it's valid after a 30-point move. And then this short here was valid for like a split second. If you're using 2 ticks under the bar, it would never have triggered you. The short here valid at 1040. Right here, the buy would not have been valid. The short here valid. The short here, not quite. Back here, change this to a point right here because we're green. Here, still green. This is valid. Buy's not valid. Short, not valid unless you take it off the bigger super trend stop. So a little bit different than what you see in Ninja, but still decent entries regardless of if you're going to use Ninja or Sierra. All right, so I hope that helps. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email. If you want the recording, just go to my site and check out the info by clicking webinar recording tab. Okay, take care, you guys.